In this series, we're diving deep into How to Succeed by Orison Swett Marden, a classic that helped launch the personal development movement more than a century ago. Each episode unpacks its big ideas and brings them into focus for today's high-performance entrepreneurs, leaders, and builders. If you're ready to lead with clarity, grow with intention, and ground your ambition in principles that last, make sure to subscribe. Let's get into it.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation, maybe a job or, I don't know, even a hobby, where something just felt a bit off?
Yeah.
Not like terrible, but just like a puzzle piece trying to fit into the wrong spot, or maybe a musician playing this amazing score, but, well, on the completely wrong instrument.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's that sort of deep, nagging whisper, sometimes it even gets loud, that you're just out of place.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't just about careers, is it? It feels like a really universal human thing, this search for alignment.
It really is. And it's way more common than people might think, that feeling. It's not just a mood,
Right.
It's often this deep internal signal, like it's trying to guide you towards where you actually belong.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, ignoring it. That can really have significant costs.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, that powerful signal. We're cracking open Chapter 4 of Orison Swett Marden's, well, it's a timeless classic, isn't it? How to Succeed.
It really holds up.
And this chapter is just perfectly titled Out of Place. It's more than just some old text. It feels like this urgent call to self-awareness, really, a kind of foundational look at our quest for alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission today really is to unpack Marden's insights, these deep thoughts he had about natural aptitude, finding your true calling, and sort of translate his, century-old wisdom for us now. We want to show how these core ideas can genuinely light up your path towards, well, greater fulfillment, success, real well-being in the world we live in today.
Yeah, because it feels really relevant. We're going to explore the huge impact that comes from really aligning with your natural strengths.
Right.
And also the hidden costs, often really insidious costs, of being misaligned. And maybe the most important part, the liberating power you get from embracing your unique individuality.
That's key.
This deep dive, we hope, gives you some real actionable insights, helps you recognize where you truly belong, and maybe, just maybe, how to take that first courageous step towards it.
Okay, so let's start by maybe laying the groundwork. What does Marden actually mean by being out of place? He kicks things off with this really profound quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Ah, Emerson.
Yeah, Emerson talks about the high prize of life, the crowning fortune of a man, is to be born with a bias to some pursuit, which finds him in employment and happiness.
Born with a bias.
And
that phrase, it really jumps out, doesn't it?
It does.
Because today, bias often makes us think of, well, prejudice. Something negative.
Right, it has that connotation now.
But in Emerson's context, it seems much richer. He's talking about an inherent leaning, right? A natural predisposition, almost like an innate calling.
Exactly. It's that internal pull, the direction your talents naturally want to take you, like a sort of unique gravity towards certain kinds of work, certain ways of thinking.
It's not about destiny being fixed then. It's more about recognizing this powerful natural aptitude inside you.
Precisely. And when you find that bias, that natural inclination, and you lean into it, work stops feeling like just labor.
Mm-hmm.
It changes.
Yeah.
It often feels more like play, or, that state of flow people talk about now.
Flow.
That psychological sweet spot, right?
Mm.
Where you're so absorbed in what you're doing, time just vanishes, you're not self-conscious, and you're just operating at your peak, effortlessly engaged.
It's amazing how Marden, through Emerson, was basically describing flow over a century ago, long before it was a big psychological concept.
Yeah, the core idea was there.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, for you listening now, how do you even start to identify your inherent bias, especially in a world that often pushes conformity, and there are just endless options, endless pressures?
It's overwhelming.
What activities make you just lose track of all time? What challenges feel less like chores and more like, I don't know, puzzles you actually want to solve?
And it's not just about personal happiness either, is it? Marden broadens the idea. He brings in Talleyrand.
Ah, the statesman.
Right. Talleyrand's observation. The art of putting the right man in the right place is perhaps the first in the science of government. Now, okay, he was talking about politics, governing.
Sure.
But that insight, it's hugely relevant for choosing careers, for how organizations work, even today.
That's a great point. Whether you're running a country or a company or just figuring out your own career, putting people where their strengths are best used, it's fundamental. for success, for efficiency.
No.
But what happens when that alignment doesn't happen? Marden then brings in the poet Shelley, and it's quite poignant. He describes the rustic Milton's stifling, speechless longings and the vulgar Cato forced to mold a pin or fabricate a nail.
The imagery is just so stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
A rustic Milton. Imagine someone with that raw, untamed potential for genius, for poetry, trapped in just soul-crushing drudgery, their true song just silenced, and a vulgar Cato, someone maybe born for leadership, for big ideas, stuck doing repetitive, mind-numbing work. It speaks to this deep, unfulfilled potential. It's tragic, really.
It hits so close to home, that modern feeling of being stuck in jobs that don't fulfill you, roles that just don't use your real talents, or worse, actively squash them. It's a personal tragedy, isn't it? That unexpressed potential, that wasted brilliance. You might feel it as just this dull ache, this nagging feeling there's something more inside you, waiting, but it never gets a chance.
So the core problem Marden's getting at is this fundamental mismatch. Aptitude versus role. And he uses this incredibly vivid metaphor.
Oh, yes, the fish.
The fish out of water. He says, its fins mean nothing, they are only a hindrance. The fish can do nothing but flounder out of its element. But as soon as the fins feel the water, they mean something.
It's such a perfect analogy, you can almost feel it. Think about it. A fish's fins are amazing assets in water, right? Power, steering, balance.
Essential.
But take that fish out of the water, and those same fins, totally useless. They actually get in the way as the fish just crashes around.
Floundering.
Yeah. It shows so clearly how skills and strengths that are invaluable in one place can become liabilities, frustrations, or just useless in the wrong setting. When you're out of your element, you just flounder.
And we see this everywhere professionally. Like, picture someone super creative, innovative, stuck in a rigid bureaucratic job. Rules, procedures, no room to think outside the box.
Oh, yeah.
Their creativity, which would be a superpower somewhere else, just becomes a source of frustration or conflict,
Right.
or just withers away.
Yeah.
Their fins mean nothing. They're struggling to breathe, basically.
And Marden gives this striking example, even though it's old, it feels so current. He calls it, well, we could call it the modern-day law student dilemma.
Right. The statistic he uses.
Yeah, 52% of our college graduates studied law, not because they have the slightest natural aptitude for it, but because it is put down as the proper road to promotion.
52%. And okay, it's over 100 years old, that stat.
Yeah.
But it still feels chillingly familiar, doesn't it?
It really does.
It speaks directly to the pressures so many people feel today. Chasing prestige, chasing what looks like the proper road, maybe the high income, instead of genuine fit. How many people pick a career, law, medicine, finance, whatever, not from passion or aptitude, but because it looks good, or it's expected, or promises status?
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Where in your own life might you have chosen a path based more on what other people think, the perceived success, the approval, rather than what truly resonates inside? Marden warns that choice often leads to this deep unhappiness later on, even if you tick all the external boxes. It's the difference between a life that looks good and one that actually feels good.
Which leads us straight into the really high cost of being misaligned. It's not just feeling a bit restless. Marden says it leads to profound stagnation, personally and professionally.
Yeah, he's really clear about it. He says, a man never grows in personal power and moral stamina when out of his place.
Wow.
If he grows at all, it is a narrow, one-sided, stunted growth, not a manly growth.
Stunted growth. That's a powerful image. It suggests being misaligned doesn't just affect your job performance. It stops you developing as a whole person.
Exactly. It's not just about climbing the ladder. It's about other parts of your potential just wasting away. Think about the emotional limits, the intellectual limits it imposes. If you're constantly fighting your own nature, forcing yourself into a box that doesn't fit,
Right.
how can you genuinely grow, evolve, become a fully integrated person? Your growth gets, like he says, narrow, one-sided, stunted. You might get good at the specific tasks, sure, but at the expense of your broader humanity.
And then he says something even more, well, jarring. A man out of place is not half a man. He feels unmanned, unsexed. He cannot respect himself, hence he cannot be respected.
Yeah, that language is definitely of its time, a bit challenging now.
It is. But if we kind of translate unmanned or unsexed to mean feeling disempowered, stripped of your core self, feeling inauthentic, then the message is incredibly powerful still.
Absolutely. When your daily work, maybe your whole life path, forces you to deny or suppress who you really are, your genuine leanings, you inevitably lose touch with your core. And that lack of self-respect, it doesn't stay contained in your job, does it? It bleeds into everything. Your well-being, your relationships, your whole sense of who you are.
It's like that cognitive dissonance idea, right? Your inner truth fighting your outer reality. That friction is just incredibly draining.
You end up feeling like a shadow of yourself because you're always playing a role that just isn't you.
Marden also talks about how pointless it is to just use brute force, unnatural effort when you're out of your element. He says something really profound. Nature abhors the slightest perversion of natural aptitude or deviation from the sealed orders which accompany every soul into this world.
Sealed orders. I love that phrase. It suggests this inherent design, right? Like a blueprint or a purpose baked into each of us.
Yeah, like pre-programmed talents and inclinations.
And working against that design, against those sealed orders, it just leads to discomfort, struggle, and usually failure. It's a call to respect your own unique makeup, psychologically, maybe even biologically, to recognize you're wired for certain things, and importantly, not for others. You have to understand your own operating system.
And he makes this even clearer with another great analogy, the one about the horses.
The race horses and draft horses.
Yeah. You can enter all kinds of horses for a race, but only those which have natural adaptation for speed will make records. The others will only make themselves ridiculous by their lumbering, unnatural exertions to win. And then he applies it directly to people like truck and family horse lawyers.
It's such a vivid image. Picture a big, strong draft horse built for pulling heavy loads, trying to win a race like the Kentucky Derby.
Jackal Saucy.
Right. It might try its absolute hardest, use all its strength, but it's just going to look clumsy, lumbering, and it's going to fail.
And Marden argues it's the same with people, someone with huge willpower, huge dedication, but in the wrong field. They might become fairly passable, but only through sheer unnatural exertions.
Whereas that same effort put into something aligned with their actual strengths
would lead to mastery. They'd be kings in their line. It really speaks to that idea of comparative advantage, playing to your strengths where your effort actually pays off, instead of fighting against the current.
But this doesn't mean willpower isn't important.
No, not at all. Marden makes a crucial distinction. He says, willpower in application cannot make a farmer of a born painter.
Right.
You can work incredibly hard, be unbelievably determined, but if all that effort is pushing directly against your fundamental nature, your core aptitudes, it's ultimately futile in the long run.
It's that huge difference between hard work and your element where it feels natural, maybe even energizing, like you're going with the flow, versus hard work against your nature, where every single step feels like pushing a giant rock uphill.
One path leads to mastery, joy, satisfaction. The other, exhaustion, mediocrity, and just this feeling of dread.
And the psychological toll, the emotional drain of being constantly out of place. Marden describes the symptoms so clearly, losing that natural buoyancy, energy, and enthusiasm, which are as natural to a man in his place as his breath.
You can instantly picture the difference, can't you? The worker who's just going through the motions mechanically and without heart, always checking their watch, thinking only of the paycheck.
Yeah, the clock watcher.
That's the person out of place.
Yeah.
Just counting down the minutes. But the person who is in their right place, aligned with who they are, Marden says the days are all too short.
Right. They're energized, absorbed, so passionate they forget about time. It really paints a stark picture. The internal cost of misalignment versus the vitality of alignment.
And the long-term effects. Marden warns they're truly damaging. To be out of place is demoralizing to all the powers of manhood. Again, a bit dated language, but the idea.
The core idea is clear.
Your inherent powers, self-respect, enthusiasm, courage, they just ooze out, he says, making real success impossible. It's a serious warning about the cumulative hit to your spirit, your potential, your whole self, when you keep operating outside your natural sphere. It's not just about not excelling, it's this slow erosion of who you are.
Yeah.
Lack to imposter syndrome, loss of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us to some really interesting stories Marden shares, these cautionary tales, but also some unexpected positive turns. They show how people end up out of place, but also how sometimes that inner drive just finds a way. Let's start with that trap of external expectations, or maybe well-meaning but bad advice, like the story of Jonathan Chase. His father, even though Jonathan was basically ready for college, just tells him, "Jonathan, thou shalt go down to the machine shop on Monday morning."
Ouch. Just like that. It's a classic case of external pressure, often from family or society, pushing someone off their path. His father had a totally different plan for him. But what's fascinating is, despite that detour, Jonathan eventually got out of the machine shop. Driven by his own aptitudes, he worked his way up, became a U.S. Senator.
Amazing.
It really shows that while those pressures can misdirect us, that innate drive, that authentic aptitude, if you persist, if you're courageous, it can eventually win out and find its expression.
Then there's Galileo. Huge figure. As a teenager sent to university with strict orders, focus on medicine, avoid philosophy and literature.
Yeah, don't get distracted by the alluring stuff.
Exactly. But what happens? At 18, he's watching a lamp swing in a cathedral and figures out the principle of the pendulum.
It's such a great example of natural curiosity, that deep aptitude, just overriding the instructions. He was forbidden, but his genius for observation, for science, couldn't be stopped.
That inner bias was just too strong.
It propelled him. It makes you think, doesn't it? For yourself, listening, how can you tune into your inner Galileo, that quiet voice of curiosity, even when everyone else is telling you to go a different way? What are you maybe suppressing right now?
And I love this little story about John Adams. His father, a shoemaker, tries to teach him the trade, gives him the uppers to cut out using a pattern. And the pattern famously had this three-cornered hole for hanging it up. So what does future President Adams do? Meticulously cuts out the uppers, hole and all.
It's just perfect, isn't it?
Yeah.
So funny, but so insightful. It shows this complete, almost comical lack of natural aptitude for that specific task. Maybe an inability to see beyond the literal instructions.
Right. Just follow the pattern. Exactly.
It's a great visual for someone totally unsuited to a role. Some things just don't click. Your fins aren't working. And it highlights the wisdom of not trying to force that three-cornered hole where it just doesn't belong.
Then there's the poet Tennyson. His grandfather gives him 10 shillings for a poem about his grandmother, but then says, basically, that's the first and last money you'll ever make from poetry.
Oof. Talk about discouraging.
Right. It's a stark reminder of how many talents get nipped in the bud by early criticism or practical but short-sighted advice, or just a lack of vision from others.
But true aptitude, that inherent leaning Emerson talked about, it often has this incredible resilience, doesn't it?
Thankfully, yes.
It finds a way to bloom, even against those kinds of predictions. And Tennyson, well, he became one of the most famous poets ever, proved Grandpa wrong.
And then the story of Murillo, the painter. His mother wanted him to be a priest, a respectable path. But Marden says nature had already marked him for her own. So imagine his mother coming home from church.
Oh, boy.
To find he'd taken down the sacred family painting, Jesus and the Lamb, and painted his own hat on Jesus's head and turned the lamb into a dog.
That is bold
Yeah.
for a kid. But it really shows the sheer force, sometimes this rebellious force, of a natural calling fighting against what's expected.
He got disowned, his life turned upside down. But he set off alone with just courage and determination. And he didn't just become famous. He became this person of strong character, forged by overcoming that adversity. It's a powerful message that true passion finds a way, sometimes controversially, and hardship can actually make you stronger if you stick to your path.
Marden also talks about blind spots, about self-delusion, which, let's be honest, we still see all the time. He quotes Thackeray, the novelist, who observed that really clever, learned people often have a soft spot for dunces who, surprisingly, turn out by no means the dullest in life. And he contrasts them with academically brilliant but ultimately feeble prigs.
That really challenges the common idea that academic success equals real-world smarts or happiness, doesn't it?
Completely. Thackeray's point is that intelligence comes in many forms. Many aptitudes exist way beyond school or qualifications. Someone might bomb Latin but be amazing with people, or a fearless innovator, or brilliant at building things.
Right. We shouldn't define smart too narrowly. True brilliance shows up in surprising ways.
And then Marden gives us that wonderful, almost ridiculous story of Dame Partington. During a huge flood, she's seen with mop and pattens vigorously pushing away the Atlantic Ocean.
Chuckles. Trying to mop up the ocean.
It's just the perfect picture of trying to do something you are completely, fundamentally unsuited for.
Yeah.
The sheer absurdity of fighting a tide that's just too strong for your tools, your abilities.
Yeah.
And Marden asks, how many Dame Partingtons there are in every walk of life? It's a great prompt for us to ask ourselves, am I trying to mop an ocean somewhere in my life? Fighting a losing battle because I'm fundamentally misaligned with the task. It's not about effort, it's about fit.
And then there's their really tragic side of self-delusion.
Yeah.
The painter Benjamin Robert Hayden. Marden says Hayden blamed the world for his lack of success, but his failure was due wholly to his being out of place. His disappointments were pitiable because he truly believed he was an artist, yet Marden states bluntly he had not the slightest sense of color.
That's just heartbreaking. It's such a strong cautionary tale about self-deception, about clinging to an identity or path that isn't really yours, especially when a fundamental aptitude is missing.
Like a chef with no taste.
Exactly. He lacked a core skill but couldn't see it, or wouldn't see it. And blaming the world instead of looking inward, it led to tragedy. It's a stark reminder to be honest about our strengths, not just follow our desires blindly.
But there's definitely hope in Marden's writing, too. He shares these inspiring stories of people overcoming really harsh early judgments, often from their own families.
Right, like Dr. Isaac Barrow. His own father apparently said something like, "If God takes one of my children, I hope it's Isaac."
Ouch, that's rough.
Or John Wesley, founder of Methodism. His father apparently asked his mother why she bothered telling that blockhead the same thing 20 times.
And what did she say?
She supposedly replied, "Because, my dear, if I had told him but 19 times, all my labor would have been lost, while now he will understand and remember."
Wow, 19 times wouldn't cut it, but 20 did.
It really highlights how those initial labels, dull, blockhead, even from parents, can be completely wrong. Perseverance, especially from someone supportive like Wesley's mother, can unlock potential that was hidden.
Maybe they just needed a different approach or more time.
Exactly. These slow learners often just need the right conditions to blossom. Potential isn't always obvious at first glance.
And he gives other examples too, right? Walter Scott, called the great blockhead at college, or Ulysses S. Grant, supposedly called Useless Grant by his own mother before he became, General Grant and President Grant.
These stories are so encouraging for anyone who's ever been underestimated or misjudged. They show that first impressions are often wrong, and that inner bias, that real potential, can stay hidden until you find your proper place, the right environment where your unique talents can finally shine, maybe even dominate.
So, okay, we've talked about the costs, the misdirections. What does it actually feel like when you do find your true place? Marden paints this really vibrant picture. Joy, power, authenticity.
Yeah, he describes the person in their place as happy, joyous, cheerful, energetic, fertile in resources. It's not just a small shift. It's this fundamental transformation in your whole state of being.
You can feel the difference he's describing, that profound happiness. And the idea that the days are all too short for him, that's flow right there again.
Absolutely. So absorbed, so aligned, time just disappears. And Marden says all his faculties give their consent to his work, say yes to his occupation.
Say yes. I like that. It implies this complete internal harmony. No friction, no holding parts of yourself back.
And the ultimate payoff, Marden clarifies, is he is a man, he respects himself, and is happy because all his powers are at play in their natural sphere. That's really it, isn't it? Self-actualization through work that feels meaningful, that aligns with who you are.
Becoming the fullest version of yourself.
And he closes that thought with that beautiful image of the young swan.
Oh, yeah, that was lovely.
Restless and uneasy until she finds the element she has never before seen, and then finding the water with arched neck. Rose here Promenis with oary feet.
It's just so poetic. It captures that grace, that power, that natural ease that comes when you finally find your true element. The swan wasn't struggling or forcing it. It was just restless until it found its water.
Exactly.
And then its inherent design took over, making everything look effortless and right. It wasn't trying to be an eagle. It was embracing being a swan, finding its water.
That's the key. Not forcing flight if you're built to glide on water. It's about courageously identifying and then finding or even creating the environment where your sealed orders, your design, can flourish, or your fins work.
Marden also gives us some great real-life examples of these transformations. Remember the young salesman from the start of the chapter? Blunt, couldn't sell a thing.
Right, total failure at sales.
But then they put him in the counting house, and his aptitude for figures immediately showed. Within a few years, he wasn't just the chief cashier, he was an eminent accountant.
It just shows the incredible, almost instant power of shifting into a role that fits your aptitude. The same person failing miserably in one place becomes a huge success somewhere else. The only thing that changed was the alignment. Failure often just means misalignment.
There's also that interesting case of Thomas Erskine, the brilliant lawyer.
The orator.
Yeah, carried everything before him at the bar. Amazing in court. But then he gets elected to Parliament, and suddenly, against Pitt, his lofty spirit was chilled. Marden says he was again out of his place, shorn of his magic power. His eloquence faltered.
That's such an important nuance. Finding your place isn't always one single fixed thing forever. Even someone brilliant like Erskine can be out of place in a different context, a different arena.
Right. His genius was for the courtroom, the adversarial style.
Parliament had different rules, different dynamics, maybe more cynicism that just didn't suit his specific talents. It shows alignment can be very context-dependent. A king in one area can struggle elsewhere.
And then there's Jay Gould, the financier. The story is so encouraging. Marden says he failed as a storekeeper, tanner, and surveyor and civil engineer. That's a lot of failures.
There really is.
Before he got into a railroad office where he struck his gait.
That's incredibly validating, isn't it? It shows finding your path is often this messy trial and error process.
Yeah.
Those failures weren't dead ends. They were just signposts, pointing him away from what wasn't right for him. They were lessons, leading him eventually to the railroad office where things finally clicked, where he found his rhythm and thrived. It really speaks to perseverance, learning from experience, seeing missteps as part of the journey.
And finally, Marden really brings it all home, focusing on the absolute power of just being yourself, of individuality. He states it so clearly. Man only grows when he is developing along the lines of his own individuality, and not when he is trying to be somebody else.
That's the core message, really. Authentic growth, deep fulfillment, real power. It all comes from recognizing, embracing, and nurturing your unique design. Marden says profoundly, there is no one like you in all creation, as the pattern was broken when you were born.
Wow, that's quite an affirmation.
It really is. You're an original, a one-off, unlike anyone who ever was or ever will be.
So the danger of trying to copy others becomes really clear then. He warns that imitating even successful people is not only to ruin your own pattern, but to make only an echo of the one imitated.
Copying someone else, no matter how great they seem, just diminishes your own unique strength, your impact, your true self. You end up being, at best, a pale imitation instead of a powerful, authentic version of you.
Right.
And his final words on this are so strong. There is no strength off the lines of our own individuality. Anywhere else we are dwarfs, weaklings, echoes, and the echo even of a great man is a sorry contrast to even the smallest human being who is himself.
What a powerful way to end. It just drives it home. True strength, true purpose, true fulfillment. It only comes from being genuinely, unapologetically you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a truck horse if you're a racehorse. Don't try to mop the ocean if you're meant to swim in it, or maybe even discover new lands.
Exactly. Recognize your bias, understand the costs of ignoring it, and trust that the journey to find your true place, your authentic element.
Yeah.
Well, it's maybe the most important, most rewarding journey you can take.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap this deep dive into Marden's Out of Place. We've looked at how vital it is to understand and align with your natural talent.
Mm-hmm.
The serious costs of being misaligned, that stunted growth, those demoralized powers, and the incredible joy and power that come from really embracing who you uniquely are.
So the key takeaways for you listening might be really cultivate that deep, honest self-awareness about where you naturally lean. Question those external pressures, those societal shoulds that don't feel right inside.
Right.
Learn to see failures not as endpoints, but as valuable clues guiding you. And maybe most importantly, trust that inner bias, those sealed orders, because that's what leads to your most authentic, fulfilling place.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with as you reflect on all this. Where in your own life right now do you feel like that fish out of water kind of struggling? Or maybe like Dame Partington trying to achieve the impossible, fighting a battle that isn't really yours? And maybe ask yourself, what one small, maybe courageous step could you take this week? Just one thing. To explore or lean into a natural talent, a passion, a bias you've possibly ignored, just to move a tiny bit closer to your true, authentic self.
Because that journey to finding your true place, it's ongoing, isn't it? It's full of discovery, evolution. It's probably the most important journey there is. We really hope you continue your own deep dive into self-discovery and keep using wisdom like Marden's to empower your own success.
Thanks for joining me on this chapter of How to Succeed. Remember, success doesn't start with skills or resources. It starts with who you are when no one's watching. If this episode gave you something to think about, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who's building themselves into something big. This is Mindset Foundations. I'll see you in the next chapter.